So we want to welcome Dr. Bo Anglad. He's an economist. He's working as a consultant in the international development here in Washington, D.C. He was born and raised in Carrefour, Haiti. So I wonder where you are from in Carrefour, Konwane, Ukone, Maotier. So he has his PhD in applied economics from the University of Florida, a master degree in business economics from the University of South Florida, a bachelor degree in economics from Florida International University. He's a political analyst. He is following the social political events from his beloved country, Haiti, for the past 15 years, has written several articles, op-ed, and he also has a new book out. The book contains translations of speeches made by former President Jean-Bertrand Aristide. It is an introduction to inspire Haitian American here in the diaspora to look at the works of President Aristide. So he is also a resident of Maryland. Dr. Bo, bonsoir. Bienvenue dans Konbit Lakay. Gade et pays.
Bonsoir, bonsoir, Madame Charles. Et c'est un plaisir pour moi, pour me capable là ensemble avec nous. Moi salue tout le monde capitaine de l'émission et surtout et à tout moment yo, bon, maman américaine yo surtout, nous souhaiter bonne fête, bonne fête.
Ah bon, et maman haïtienne yo?
Non, maman haïtienne yo y a vini dans 5 mois.
Ou pas bayo ça? Ou pas gen ça non?
N'a 2 semaines pour nous souhaiter bonne fête.
OK, dans Konbit Lakay nous dit maman haïtienne ou défaite demain.
Ah, OK, c'est bien.
OK. Donc faut bailler maman haïtienne yo pa yo à tout parce que yo dans Amérique ou pas ka retirer tikal là-dedans. So, yeah, it is a pleasure to have you here with us. There is this series of answers from the Inter-American dialogue that came out with several colleagues or leaders or the folks who participated in answering these questions. The questions they are asking, Haiti is a wreck by deepening political unrest and economic misery, as well as a rush of kidnapping, which, according to the United Nations, tripled last year. President Jovenel Moïse acknowledged on April 14th that efforts to fight insecurity have been ineffective. And the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Port-au-Prince recently said the country's society is suffering from a descent into hell. What are the reasons behind the surge of kidnapping and worsening insecurity, and why haven't policies improved security worked? So that is the questions you guys were trying to answer. And I must say that the Haitian de facto ambassador, Edmond Boukchit, is one of the individuals who responds for the government, showing that the government is putting money behind the Haitian National Police and that they disband gang. I don't know which gang that they disband, but they did. According to him, they disband gang. And then also the president of Quisqueya University, Jacques Mark, provided his response in terms of what's going on in there. The article is available online, the dialogue.org, for people who want to take a look at it. Juan Gabriel Valdez, former special representative and heads of the UN missions in Haiti, also responded to questions. Gabriel Apollon made a response. They did a human rights report from Harvard. So, and you and Georges Fleuriol also provided response to that same questions, but I want to come to you as the economist and political analyst. I played that song. I'm sure you can understand why, right? From an economic perspectives, in terms of what is going on in Haiti, whether it is kidnapping, it is the political instability, and especially how the political instability impact our economic system in Haiti. How do you see all of these unfolds, and where do you see, how do we move out of the situations? Do you see lights at the end of the tunnel?
Unfortunately, I'm not too optimistic when it comes to that, because the situation is very dire at the moment. In terms of, if I can talk about the economic aspect, especially. Usually what economists use to measure how a country is doing, it's the growth in GDP. And so far, the last time that we had a situation as bad in terms economically was right after the earthquake. But now, for the past 2 years, we have been seeing the economy actually going back at a really fast rate. So this is a very complicated situation. And the implication of that, the economic aspect, is also the problem of food insecurity that we have in Haiti. And in 2016, I believe that the number of people who were food insecure was 2 million people, but now we're looking at 4.4 million people. So that is a very, very, very big number. We're talking about 44% of the population who do not have enough food to eat. So this political situation that we're talking about mixed with the economic situation might give us a social chaos in the near future. And the problem in Haiti is that we are at the beginning of this crisis, because the crisis
Which crisis?
The political crisis that we have right now.
Okay.
And to me, this is just the beginning, as things will get worse and worse over time. It's like a baby in the room. The baby starts to have feet and then, eyes and things like that. But the baby's going to grow even bigger one day and come out. So we are at a situation where, to me, in the next few months, that's when we're going to see the true impact of this political crisis.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit to the impact of the economic impacts from this political crisis. When we talk about food insecurity in Haiti, food insecurity is something that I know a lot of folks in the international community, a lot of the NGOs, they make use of that. I know the World Food Program, and the UNs and the World Banks and stuff, they do a lot of research and look at what lacks of foods that we have. But Haiti, both you and I know, c'est un pays essentiellement agricole. C'est ça nous apprend l'école? C'est ça nous lever joindre. So we are essentially a country based on agriculture. So how do we then have food insecurity in Haiti? Whose fault is that?
Well, in part, nous capables de dire que la production nationale là n'est pas up to part. Et si nous regardons dans le passé, nous parlons vraiment vrai côté avant que Haïti était self-sufficient in terms of food, but there were a series of policies, what they call the neoliberal economic policies, that actually open up the countries to more import and actually destroy the agricultural production in the Haiti. So this is the consequences of that in the late 80s, in the early 90s, of these kind of policies. So in a sense, you are correct that part of the reason why today we are not self-sufficient, we cannot feed ourselves, is these policies in the past, Haitians combined with some people in the international community, they impose in Haiti that makes Haiti even poorer than it is today.
I will say more the international community. I'm not going to ask you to say it, but I will say it myself. Bill Clinton is one of them. The policies from the World Bank, the IMF, including the IDB, with the structural adjustment policies that were pushed upon the Aristide administration in order to return to Haiti. I know he signed the contracts for these policies, but those policies were both implemented by the Preval government in closing out all of our government-owned entities and removing the ability of the Haitian government to provide subsidies to Haitian farmers. So when we are getting rice from Arkansas and we are preventing our Haitian farmers from producing rice, what did we expect to happen, especially when we had also killed, USAID had supported and killed all the Haitian Creole pigs? How did we expect not to create food insecurity in a nation like that?
And the worst right now, if looking at the trade balance of the country, you can see that we are importing a lot, but compared to what we are exporting, it's the importation is significantly higher. So we are not producing anything for us to, consume at home or even to trade with abroad. So this is a very complicated situation that also impact the value of our currency, and this is one of the reasons why it is so unstable over the years.
But I will say that Haiti has a choice to make. I think when we make friends, we have to pick our friends wisely. If we have friends that is pushing us to fall down off the edge and hurt ourselves, is that a good friend? Or is that a bad friend?
Not.
So I'm sorry to say. Okay.
Definitely not.
So if we have a friend who's telling us, you don't have to produce rice in your country, you don't have to produce bananas in your countries anymore, you can buy it from us, but yet you have to borrow the money from us at high interest rate to turn around and purchase the food from us. How is that assisting Haiti in any way, shape, or form? And what kind of friendship is that? So I think Haiti has to make a concrete and decisive decisions in using whatever little meager resources that they have to focus on producing locally instead of spending so much money, borrowing money rather, to buy rice outside of Haiti, because rice, it is not sufficient to nourish the Haitians. And even though, yes, we eat rice, it is a staple food, but rice is not really one of the main nutrients in our diet. As you know, yam, potatoes, plantains, and things of that sort that we grow on the soil that are organic, that's what we were used to eating. And Haitians had less health issues when they were consuming things grown on our own land.
Yeah. And the sad thing is that, in the last elections, a lot of people voted for a candidate that they believe somehow was going to turn things around in the agricultural sector. That's one of the main reasons that they voted for this person. And 5 years later, nothing has been done to actually increase agricultural production or national production. So, sous 10, c'est complètement zéro que nous tabaye et président ça.
Ah, c'est pas zéro encore. Zero, triple zero in terms of agricultural production for somebody who ran a campaign on bananas. So now let's move into the political instability, the crisis. On the one hand, the European Union is saying that they're not going to provide financial assistance. We've seen statements from Benin saying that the process to hold elections or constitutional referendum is not clear, is not inclusive, if I may use their same word. We've seen there's a lot of demands and letters to the State Departments, to the Biden administrations, asking them to change their position. Nothing is budging. The State Department is still pushing, even though they say they're not supporting a constitutional referendum, but they are still supporting the former president to move ahead with legislative and presidential elections. So how do we come out of this when we suppose OAS is supposed to be traveling to Haiti to have a political accord? Do you see an agreement coming out?
Well, from what's coming from Haiti, it seems like, the talks are going, and a lot of people are starting to think this way now. How can we have a political accord to come out of this? So from my own information, it seems like they're moving towards that and to have some sort of agreement. But we're going to have to wait to see how this is going to be played. But what I'm seeing right now is that, the international community, with every day that's passing by, so they are realizing that, maybe this thing cannot happen, the referendum and the elections. So there will come a time, in the next few weeks where they're going to have to, shift their position in a way, because it is clear that what they're trying to do, what they're trying to support, it's not something that can happen. Technically, in my opinion, the referendum and the election cannot happen this year, even if there was a will for it to happen.
And actually, regarding that possibility of not having the referendum in the election, there was the new prime minister de facto, Claude Joseph went to visit the CEP, and there was articles in the Gazette and Rendezvous Northwest where they said he mentioned the possibility that nothing is off the table, even though last week he says that the questions of having Jovenel step down is not up for negotiation. So how do you then open up dialogues? Another thing I want to point out is the things that I mentioned earlier, the letter from Sir Ronald. I'm not sure if you saw that, talking about the fact that the Luis Almagro cannot provide to them so far clear evidence that he sent a letter to Jovenel Moïse and other members, stakeholders of the opposition, asking them for the OAS to negotiate. So do you see Almagro doing a partisan negotiation for Jovenel, or is he going to conduct a negotiation on behalf of the OAS?
Well, that's interesting. I didn't have this information about, the lack of evidence. But, so he will need to, clarify that if it's something that he's doing formally on behalf of OAS or on behalf of himself. But what I want to say is that, regarding what the Prime Minister said, is that, things are moving, and I'm guessing they're going to get to a point where they realize that, they cannot keep on going on and lying to themselves like that, they can have a referendum and election this year. So they're getting to that point where something will have to be done, in terms of some sort of agreement or a deal for this president to step down.
Bon, te dit le pape descend.
Well, c'est comme ça. Parce que moi-même, j'aime le président. C'est un commun et qui conduit un bateau, mais qui perd tête et puis il pensait la prive en côté, alors que tout le monde voit qu'il ne peut pas arriver côté le rivière. Donc, je ne rive non là que la obligé réaliser que ça la PC fait, c'est possible.
Mais président saute fait rigole Marion. Quel les barrages Marion.
Il est très fier de lui, well fier.
And he said, Christophe constructed the citadel. He constructed the rigole. So, how is that this canal compared to the almighty citadel in Haiti? I don't know. But I think those people that are running the country right now, they are all in denial.
They are very much in denial. Yeah.
It is. I don't know if the situation have surpassed them or if they just dumbing it down so they can fill up their pockets and wait for the time to just evade the country. That's kind of the impressions that I'm getting. But it's at the same time, it's the audacity of the folks. I think one of the other things that I'm thinking regarding the elections, as you know, there has been some blips on the social media about, there was a voice circulating actually that the president of the Commission des armements, t'as parlé avec groupe yo pour demander yo pour yo font suspend pendant un moment pour question référendum avec élection. Hein? And then all of a sudden I'm seeing articles that are coming out in some of the online newspapers stating that Village des Dieux and the other group up there in Grand Ravine have agreed to stop any kidnapping for the next 2 months. I mean, how do you do elections? How do you do dialogues when you have a government who have created G9 family and allies?
Yeah, I mean, this is very sad. This is very sad because in every country there's this principle that, you do not negotiate with terrorists. You don't negotiate with gangs. And for us to get to a situation where, the government is asking, the gangs to do something and they comply. So you can imagine that maybe there was some sort of payment done and things like that. So this is very, I would even say, embarrassing for us as a country to be, at that level. So to me, any type of negotiation would be, how does this government leave as soon as possible so we don't waste any more time? Because like you were saying, that maybe they're just waiting until, when they want to leave, which is February 7th of next year. And then they just leave like that. But that would be very selfish of them. And that would mean that they don't prioritize the country and they don't see the people really. It's like, they don't have a heart, actually.
Most definitely. Nous sommes arrivés, il fait 9h54, si ça fait pas le venir, dans yon petit bout de temps encore à 10h. Second dernier mot pour nous, en tant que Haïtiens qui vivent dans diaspora, comment diaspora yo même qu'a traversé. And also, I forgot to say that on May 18, there will be a demonstration here in Washington, D.C., started from 3rd Street Southwest, heading to the White House to say end the dictatorships in Haiti and no constitutional referendum. So, yeah, go ahead. What's your last word with us and suggestions in terms of how we take ourselves to the next level?
Non, le message vient pour dire sur capable de faire impliquer plus dans ce qui passe en Haïti pour regarder pour qui gens qui sont capable de contribuer pour faire un devoir et pour dire que ce qui passe en Haïti n'est pas acceptable et il faut que nous cherchions façon pour nous pas quitter le pays à tomber dans plus de problèmes encore. Parce que pour moi-même, c'est temps qu'a perdu et c'est plus n'a quitté temps passé, c'est plus nous pas d'opportunité pour nous commencer et cette refondation pays ou bien pour nous rebattre quatre là en façon qui est capable de permettre que nous aller vers l'avant. Donc, diaspora, on nous implique nous plus dans le dialogue. Et puis, match ça, le 18 là, je pense que c'est très important pour nous tous à participer là.
C'est ça, nous disons merci en pile. Nous souhaitons, c'est pas la dernière fois participer ensemble avec nous dans Konbit Lakay. C'était un plaisir.